We're going to go over the insane strength and athleticism of John Cena, and we're going to start right now. Okay, so one of the things that when we're looking at professional wrestlers, we've got to recognize that everybody thinks professional wrestling is fake, but the athletes are real. And that's the crazy part, is that you've got to look at pro wrestling through this light of they need crazy endurance, okay? They have to have the physique, okay? They've got to look the part to a point. They also have to be explosive, mobile, very strong. One thing I want to bring up is that even with the speed aspect and endurance is that you've got to look at these guys and women and look at it and go, okay, so they might do a warm-up outside before they get into their scrap, right? So let's say they're outside in the arena and they're warming up, and then they enter into the ring and they might have a bit that they're talking for, 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. And then all of a sudden a scrap breaks out while they're in the middle of talking, and they have to be ready to go. And the thing that ends up happening oftentimes with the best of the best is that they go into a really high intense scrap where their heart rate just skyrockets, and for like a minute to 2 minutes to 3 minutes, they feel terrible, right? They're gonna just try to adapt to that new elevated heart rate. And then at the same time, they might even have points when they're doing that they actually have to talk and entertain and put on a show. And so I think that the wild part around pro wrestling is that there is a lot of anecdotal stuff around training, but there's no fully or tried and true system as far as like what they can be doing in the gym. So I wanted to get into this and just go look at some of the crazy stuff that John Cena did as he's on his retirement tour right now, and look at some of the movement patterns, go through his insane strength, his mobility, his explosiveness, his intensity, what it means for the sport of professional wrestling, and then how we can apply this as normal, more like traditional sports performance coaches. So let's check this out. First, right off the bat, 611 pounds. So I think this is like 275 possibly. I'd say like mid-bar squat here. And actually what I want to bring up, I think that Cena was from one of my close friends, Dan Maroney's hometown, and he would talk about Cena. So I'm pretty sure he's from Massachusetts originally, that this dude was just from like a hardcore family, like blue collar, hard nose. Like they were just known for being workers, right? Like just put your nose to the grindstone and go. And clearly that's what we're seeing here on this squat. And let's look at the depth. Like legitimately, this is freaking deep. And the chest comes up. Boom. What does that mean, for normal athletes? Is it's probably going to be beneficial for us to push our back squats to a point. I think if we're looking at maximum strength, and if we're looking at, that absolute strength, right? We've got to recognize that that's going to help with our jumping ability, with our ability to be more explosive. That's going to also help be more stable in crazy positions. And, we recently looked at Saquon Barkley's training, and it's like, look, when you're doing fantastic movements, I actually think about Saquon's mega jump, and the mega jump to me is essentially like a type of trick you would see in professional wrestling. And if you watched Cena, he is a more over the top, crazy tricks to a point. I mean, not absolutely insane, but he's pretty freaking dynamic as a wrestler. And so you can see where these movements would help him perform better. And the stronger that you can be, typically the more explosive you're going to also be, especially if you're still doing those technical movements for the specific sport. And that's another thing, is like, yes, we're all going to hear this like,
oh, professional wrestling's fake.
but we're not talking about or recognizing the crazy techniques that goes, the technical aspect that goes into everything. We see, freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, and you understand the technical aspects of it, right? Like you see it and you're like, wow, this is tough. We see scraps on football on the D line, the O line, and we understand the technical patterns. I think because we still have this stigma, and I don't think it's as strong as it used to be. I think when I was growing up, it was still pretty strong, but I think it's slowly going away because people my age actually got a clue and they're not boomers. But boomers will be, oh, well, it's still fake. It's like, dude, just respect it for what it is. It's like, it's entertainment. And what they're doing is extraordinarily technical. So if you get really, really strong and you're still hitting these technical patterns and these technical positions, like, it's going to make it that much more entertaining to watch somebody. That's why we like watching the NFL, is because it's a technical sport done at very, very high speeds with big bodies. They're faster, they're more technical, and that's where these lifts come into play. So it doesn't really change as far as performance is concerned. 638. Narrow stance. This is probably 280. He just murders that. He's just like, yep, that's it. It's, I think when we're watching good technique, maybe could be a little tighter on that right side, right off the floor. It looks like it creeps forward on him a hair. I want to say that even just that movement pattern, I want to actually even watch what he's doing with his knees right off the floor, because his technique's pretty stable. So let's go right here, and let's just call out some of the deadlifters out there that want to like do their hail things before they go pull. Like, seriously, this dude's not a deadlifter, and he's got like 280 on the bar, right? It's pretty heavy. Anything over 600, I think it's pretty freaking respectable. What's he do? He sets his feet, he looks down at the weight, and he goes. Keep your shit simple. Keep it as easy as possible. Just get set and go. Stop having all these crazy movements. Like, be internal, get the work done up here, visualize it, and then go. You don't need to be doing some of this craziness. Puts his hand, now his other hand, and then what's he do? Gets a little dynamic start where he drops right here. Okay, drops the hips, starts to pull, so he gets tension right away. And if we go back just a little bit here, that dropping of the hips helps get a little bit of a stretch, okay? Now he's going to drive with the chest. You notice here, the chest comes up, right? And if we go back and look, let's do this again. We see the slack come out right there. Okay, so he gets the slack out, and as the slack comes out, he's thinking drive the chest. I don't know actually what he's thinking, but he's driving that chest up. And then once the bar, and you can see here where I was talking about the right side maybe could have been a little bit tighter. I noticed on that first pull that the right side came off a little bit later than the left, and sometimes that can be related to tightness in the like lat trap area. Honestly too, sometimes it's just slightly out of position, so if it's a little more forward, you just got to be aware of that. He's got that under grip there. Maybe you go double over with the hook, and sometimes that can help set tension in the lat a little bit easier. So that is one thing I see, but he pulls the slack and then he drives with the chest, and then you can see once the slack comes out and the bar starts to lift off the ground, his chest comes forward a hair. It's a big lift, right? But what's he do? He keeps the knees back. Okay, so we see the shins are vertical right here. And I think that one thing that I see traditionally with guys that do weightlifting movements and powerlifting movements, the ones that are the real athletes, is that they tend to have really good pulling technique. And like, a lot of people will be like, well, why do you want to do cleans or snatches? Well, I want to do cleans and snatches because I want to be really strong at pulls and really fast at heavy weights with pulls. And I want to have a really solid technical approach to lifting. Okay, those are the three reasons why we do weightlifting movements. It doesn't have to do with like triple extension or anything like that, at least in my mind. It literally is have strong pulls that are fast, okay, and then have some ability to apply technique. And we're seeing this, okay, right here. Now the shins go back. Still vertical right there. Chest is starting to come up, and we'll see those hips start to come under, okay, right there. The hips start to come under the torso, lock out, and he gets right as the hips come under, the final knee extension happens. Okay, that's typically what we see as a better sequence. You will rarely see someone who does weightlifting movements hitch at the top of a deadlift. Typically, someone who does weightlifting movements well is able to really drive and extend on that finish when they're flat-footed. Especially because if you learn how to do weightlifting movements, you want to learn like thinking flat-footed push. That's going to transfer really well. You know, then he just walks off. What an absolute savage. I didn't fully respect some of the stuff that Cena could do and until I started to prepare for this. And I knew he had been to Cal Strength a couple times. I knew he liked weightlifting. I want to say I saw a video of him a while back snatching like 140. And I think I remember even DJ saying that he was proud that he could still clean more than John Cena, or snatch more than John Cena. So here he is, 120. And that's the thing too, is this is a solid lift. Above body weight, I would assume he's probably 115 to 120. So body weight or maybe a little bit heavier than his body weight. And just thinking back to the context of what we're looking at as a sports performance coach is that we've got to remember with these guys is that they've got to be very, very explosive. They have to have good pop. They have to execute things technique-wise. And I think that that's the one thing I'm seeing with Cena is how stable his technique was in the squat, how stable his technique was in the deadlift. And then we'll see here. And that, probably is something that you see in his wrestling as well. It's almost got like a little bit of frog stance. Got like the cloak off start. Nice and easy. Dude, he just cranks that. So you can see he's probably trying to feel out that overhead position because it looks to me like his pull is pretty freaking consistent. Okay, so right here, this is a little grainy, but you can see with the shin angle, okay, and the flat-footed position here. Shin angle, knee comes back, right? Upper back seems decent. Right there, right away, you can start to see his knees coming under. Let's watch his feet here. Okay, good, solid position still. His knees come forward underneath the bar. This is what the Soviets talked about a lot is like the sooner you can push the knees under, holding that flat foot, he gets hip extension. So like right here, I would say if he was extending his hips maybe slightly more. Again, this is 120. This is a pretty freaking solid lift. Yeah, see, there is where I would say you definitely could see him bring those hips through a little more. Give me those elbows back, okay? And then let's watch his feet here. Almost looks like his right is more plantar flex than his left. Grounds flat-footed. This is essentially a power snatch, really, if we want to look at it right there. Okay, that's going to be basically a power snatch. Gets in that overhead position, stands it up. And so I want to look at this video here because now if we look at this snatch, we're looking at Cena. What is this? This might be 300 pounds, so like maybe a little more, 138 maybe. Okay, there. Shins go back. You can see here, flat-footed position. Right there, we see the knees come under immediately. And that's the big factor here is that when we're looking at when we want to see somebody moving pretty heavy weight here, so this is over 300 pounds, we want to make sure that and again, this goes back to the weightlifting movements, strong pulls, fast and strong pulls, technical aggression. That's why we do weightlifting movements. That's it, okay? And if you don't do them, you're missing all of those aspects. And each of those aspects doesn't get developed by doing like trap bar deadlifts, normal deadlifts. It doesn't doesn't even come close in comparison. And you're watching a guy who's one of the best athletes in the world at the time, and he's doing these movements. And the thing is, with the technical aggression, that also leads to culture in the gym. That leads to being able to dial in and focus really, really well and execute something at a high speed with a large load. It's really freaking challenging. So when you don't do these things, that's what you're missing out on. Look at that. The knees here as the chest comes up. This one's nice. And then he does make contact better here. You can see the flat foot position right there, just holding that flat foot position. I'm going to watch this again right here. Yeah, like right here is about where his heel comes off as he's making contact. Solid. A little jumpy with his feet, but he does. Nice, dude. This is good. Like, that's a really freaking solid. You can see the progress he made there just from the previous snatch at that 120 compared to this one with his how smooth that is. That's great. Real quick, if you're an athlete or you're somebody who's trying to get their health and fitness to that next level, you want to become an absolute freak. You want to feel what it means to become a champion. We offer strength training inside of our strength training app, Peak Strength. You can head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. You can download it. And then when you get inside Peak Strength, you can select the specific sport that you want to train for, even with specific goals. And it's going to give you a program that you can then build out over time and even lead to a peak date. So head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Now, let's get back to John Cena. Okay, so now we've seen how strong and explosive he is with his legs, big squats, big deads. We've seen what he did with his snatches, 2 different snatches, great technical progression from the snatches. Now we're going to see on the bench press what actually ends up happening here. So this is a 220 kilos, I believe is what we're looking at right now is about 220. So that's 481. 481. Anyone who's benched over 450 knows how heavy this stuff feels. And if you remember too, I talked about these guys have to look the part. They've got to basically look like bodybuilders, have the endurance of a distance runner, have the explosiveness of a gymnast and a weightlifter and a shot putter. So being able to hit all of those points and then being able to have the ability to communicate like an actor, right? So we're going to see this. Oh, wow, dude. And then he's a grinder. Oh, but wait, he lifted his butt. Somebody's got to tell John that this actually doesn't count. If you watch right here, he lifts his butt. This lift doesn't count. Yeah, so sorry, John. Everybody on the internet's going to say that you lifted your butt. It's not actually a good lift. I don't care. It's 481 pounds, 220 kilos. He takes it off. He's got great tension set. Boom, good speed, big driving. Hammers through and finishes. Dude, the other factor that people don't understand with these guys too, and is not only are they're trying to train, right? So they're trying to get this training done. They're trying to make sure that they can check the boxes needed for what they're doing in the room and in the ring. And then at the same time, they're traveling constantly. They're performing like once, twice a week. Now, I would assume with Cena it was probably like a little less because he was such a big name. But it's a constant, horrible schedule. And the travel that they go through, and then they get sick, and then they've got to still train, and then they've got to perform, and then they get banged up in the performance. It's so mentally grueling that people don't comprehend what goes into this. And so that's just an absolutely, dude, that's a great freaking lift. Cena's a monster. Imagine him playing like middle linebacker. Dialed in, smashing dudes playing middle linebacker. Okay, so here's another big lift here. Easy. So this is 240. That's like 530. Technique there, you can see just great movement patterns. Look at that. And it looks like his right side is a little better there. That lift was a little bit loose on the right side, but like just look at the shins. Okay, so right here we're looking at 180 pause back squats, full range of motion, clearly absolutely fantastic, total absolute monster. Now he's cleaning. I think this looks like 130. His front rack's a little tight, especially on the right side. And it's interesting because his right side, when he was doing his snatches, you could see the left side dumping a little bit. So the right side must have something a little bit wonky, some type of injury likely. Getting into some slow motion explosive push-ups. And this is the part where we were talking about you got to be athletic, and you're also seeing, like, look, you got to look the part too with the bodybuilding side. Okay, so here, good progression. He's just feeling that. Good technique too there. So go 70, 120, 150. 70, 120, 150, 170. 70, 190. 200, 170, 190, 200. I can't see what's on the bar there. It looks like 150. Pausing. Dude's just dialed in with what he needs to do. And this is a close grip bench here, so slaughtering his triceps. Now it looks like he's doing more of an incline here at 150. Some bent over rows. I was wondering, I was actually just thinking about tap out. I just saw one of the tap out CEOs. Okay, here we go. 270. Good. 200. Okay. The pause. Jesus. And so Cena to me embodies like powerlifting, bodybuilding, and weightlifting all in the one. What's he gonna clean? 150 here. That was nice. He does pause stuff. He does full cleans. He's doing freaking. Yeah, the only thing I don't like is how jumpy his feet are, and you could have maybe improved that mobility on the right side. Honestly, but now that I'm seeing this clean in the right side, there's got to be something related to that deadlift as well. And again, I know I had mentioned this. There's so much stress from the sport that it's very likely he had some weird injury that just continued. And it's hard to alleviate those injuries when you're constantly traveling, when you're trying to work through all the things that these guys go through. I think the big lessons here, we want to have mindset or mind involved in exercise. We want to get in, get out, get better, be better versions of ourselves. And we can do that by pushing powerlifting movements, by pushing weightlifting movements, by focusing on getting that big time pump, dialing in some of those little accessories, and then even focusing on endurance. That's what John Cena was doing consistently. He's doing that, I'm sure, right now as he's on his retirement tour. Congrats to him and his incredible career and the impact that he's had on everyone around him. You could see that just from that culture and the guys that came out of there. Roman Reigns, Big E, Seth Rollins, absolutely fantastic. If you guys need help with your training, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. If you want another video similar to this, click right here, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.